after so long a time. Then some weeds reproduce also by vegetative propagation. Then weeds, some of those weeds like the Panicum maximum, Imperiata syllogica, they have large leaves within a short time. You know, those livestock farmers that go to cut weeds for the cattle especially, when they cut it, in a matter of days, by the time you go back to that same place where they do their harvesting of weed, you discover that it's grown up again. So they grow large leaves within a short period of time. Then weed growth is very well favored during rainy season. Then most weeds are wind pollinated, and you know, wind can blow anytime, any day. Once there is wind blow, the seed are being scattered, so they begin to germinate all over the place. Then also they produce large quantities of pollen grains. We produce pollen grains, and that will also enhance fertilization. Now we'll be talking about the mode of dispersal of of seed. How are they dispersed? How do we disperse their seed? First is dispersal by weed. Dispersal by wind. And the weeds that do this, they have very light seed that easily the wind can carry them away. For instance, we have Tridus procumbens, that's the Tridus plant. We have goats with the guinea grass. Then also dispersal by animal. Seeds of weed that are dispersed by animals, they are feathery. So when an animal is just passing on the farm, they are also sticky, those seeds. So they can stick to the clothes of to the skin of the animal, or they just get themselves somehow attached to the animal. So those are the seeds that have the characteristics of being dispersed by animal. And an example of such weed is the pig weed. Then we also have some seeds of weed being dispersed by water. Then we also have dispersal by explosive mechanism, that the pod just open after a while and the seed just come out on their own. So the pod of the seed open of its own accord. After a while, then the seed come out. An example of such plant that undergo explosive mechanism, or the weeds that undergo explosive mechanism, we have Talinum triangulare, that's the water leaf. We have Centrosema Puraria, we have Calopogonium, then we have Mucuna. So those are plants that disperse their seed by explosive mechanism. Now we'll be talking about common weeds that is found on farms. So we'll be talking about their botanical names. Mention the weeds, then the botanical name. And this is very, very important. They are not so difficult. If you put your mind to them, they are not difficult to master. Then in writing a botanical name, the botanical name is binomial nomenclature. That is, it consists of two names, the specific name and the generic name. The generic name is the first one. That's the name of the genus. You know, when we're classifying plants and animals, we started from kingdom, phylum, class, genus, family, genus, species. Kingdom, phylum, class, family, genus, species. So genus and species is the last. They are the last classification. So a plant or an animal, as the case may be, but we are talking about plants now, we carry the last two names, the general name and the specific name. So, and when you are writing the specific, any of the two, when you are writing a botanical name or a scientific name, as the case may be, you have to underline it. You have to underline the two when you are writing, but when you are typing, you put it in italics. Then the generic name we start with capital letter, while the specific name, that's the second name, we start with small letter. That's the law in writing a botanical name. So let's go to talk about these botanical names of these common weeds. The first is guinea grass, and it is called Panicum maximum. Then we have Bahama grass, it is called Cynodon dactylon. Then carpet grass is called Azolopus compressus. Then we have the sensitive plants. So the sensitive plant is called Mimosa pudica. The spear grass is called Imperiata cylindrica. Then the wire grass is called Haspillia africana. Then centro is called Centrosema pubescens. We have the blue feather plant called Comenina nudiflora. It has a blue flower. Then stubborn grass, the common stubborn grass is called Iliocene indica. Then we have the goatweed. This is called Ageratum cornicoides. Then elephant grass is called Penicetum purpureum. Giant star grass is called Cynodon plactostachum. Then your pigweed is called Boevia diffusa. Then bush green is called Amaranthus spinosus. Water leaf, Talinum triangulare. Sedge plant is called Cyprus rotundus. Tridas is called Tridas procumbens. Calopo is called Calopogonium mucunoides. Then northern gamba is called Anthropogon gaianus. Then sun hemp is called Crotolaria johnsia. Then mucuna is called Mucuna utilis. Stylo is called Stylosanthus gracilis. Then southern gamba is called Andropogon tectorum. Then kudzu or puero, the plant called kudzu or puero is called Pureria phaseloides. So those are the common names or the botanical names of common weeds. Now we're talking about the general control of weeds. How do we control weeds? How do we control them? So we'll be talking about 4 basic methods of weed control: the mechanical or physical control method, the biological control, cultural control method, and then chemical control method. Mechanical or physical control method involves the following: hand picking. Okay, this farm, you just find this weed started growing, you come in there, you start uprooting with your hand. That's a mechanical or physical method. Or use of hoes, you use hoes to uproot it. That's also mechanical. Slashing is when you bring cutlass and you are cutting. You are not removing the roots, but you are cutting it at the edge, just cutting the shoots off while the root is still in the ground. That is called slashing. Then rotary cultivation is also a physical method. Then the next method is biological control. Biological control is when you bring the natural enemy of the weed to attack it. For instance, a particular plant that cannot stand another plant around it. Let's say you bring legumes, for instance mucuna or cover crop, you put it on a particular place. The other crops will not be able to grow because it will cover the ground already. So using a natural enemy to control the weed is called biological control method. The cultural control method involves the following: flooding. Flooding is a situation whereby you get water around the farm, then it will be somehow enclosed that you pump water into the farm and it will reach about 6 feet level and it will stay there for about 6 weeks. That will choke up the weed and kill them. But this method is used for plants with underground aerial underground root system. That's what you use flooding for. Then cover cropping, when you plant cover crops on your farm, and that method is used in plantation before weed will start to grow. The cover crop has already covered the whole farm. Then mulching. Mulching is a situation whereby you bring dead grasses and plants around or on your farm around the plants, so they will not allow the germination of other weeds. They will decay there and they will stop the growth of plants or weed. Then crop rotation. By the time you start rotating the crops you are planting, no weed is established on your farm. No same weed. Okay, the weed that is attached to maize on your farm. By the time you change to cassava or you change to cocoa or you change to groundnut, those same weed may not be able to accommodate the new plant, so they will not be established. Then the last method is the chemical control method. Chemical control method is the use of chemicals, herbicides generally, to control you spray it on the farm, so you kill the weeds. So those are the general methods of controlling weed. Now we want to look at the reasons why control of weed is difficult. You know, it's not so easy to control weed. Even around your house that you have not even gone to farm, discover that except you plaster the whole place. Even when you plaster, when you put this interlocking tiles, you discover that sometimes weed grow in between, so they are very difficult to control. Why? First, they are aggressive and persistent in their growth. They have very vigorous growth. Then they have high reproductive capacity. They can reproduce as many seeds as possible. Then most weed seed have long periods of viability. They can last so long, even if they are dormant. Maybe they are in the soil for some time, and maybe the condition is not suitable for their growth. They will remain there. When the condition just becomes comfortable or suitable like this, they spring up. So those are the reasons why they are difficult to control. Then they have efficient dispersal method. Most times they are dispersed by winds, we talked about their dispersal method earlier, by wind, by water, by explosive mechanism, by animals. So they have efficient dispersal method. Then they have efficient means of propagation. That's basically by seed. They are propagated by seed. Then their seed have long period of dormancy. They can remain inactive for so long. Then they now come up again. Then some weed seed mature at the same time as the crop and are harvested and stored